Hey, boom. Anyhow, yes, it is I, your golden god, Shango Ray, doing something a little different today. I actually got a request. Someone wanted to sponsor a video. They had a specific question that they wanted to, for me to just discuss, and that video is here. So part of their question was kind of like what happens after death, but more so in the sense of is the afterlife also another level of this right here, Earth, 3D. All right. So the I guess it's not a school, but the kinds of teachers that I've learned from and stuff have done various, hours upon hours of discussion on this. First and foremost, if you're expecting an empirical answer, there's not going to be one because spoiler alert, fam, I'm in a meat suit. Yeah, I'm in a meat suit, mate. So there's that. But we're going to get into some things here. And the most I want to, I'm my intention for this is just to expand like your thoughts on this shit. I'm just presenting questions. I think questions are great. I think they're more important than the answers. So with that being said, what happens when you die is the afterlife here on Earth. So one of the things that I did was I got my own chat GPT and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Because my chat GPT special. If you're special, your chat GPT gonna be special. So presented that, I'm gonna run through some points. Of course, I'm gonna put my own sauce on this because I have my own things for this. All right. So number one, death is not departure. I think we kind of all know that to a degree. Um, that what we call death is basically less an exit and more of a shift in frequency. Okay. The body stops broadcasting, obviously, the avatar, the shell, but the signal continues. So another little point they bring up here is that it actually, the soul doesn't go somewhere else, in quotes, right? It slips behind the veil, to which I would add the veil of who we call the living, or amongst the quote unquote living or whatever. Most living have just a very limited spectrum in which they can perceive, right? So you basically, now you can leave this earthly, so we're going to get into all that, but you don't necessarily leave Earth, you leave your old perception of it, okay? So the afterlife is very much so a nested layer, just like this physical realm is. You know, I want to just say up front, I don't think that death is, okay, let me present it to you like this. If your thoughts, your overall frequency, really, who you are at any given time, if that can mold and shape this quote unquote physical reality, then how much more so of that, which is a part of your consciousness, how much more so of that would affect the astral realms, the etheric, the mental realms, where there's no buffer of time at all. Like you materialize shit like that, you know? So I think that, and when you hear a lot of spiritualists talking about doing your work, it's not like worshiping anything harder. It's about, especially if you are on the path of, you know, self-deification, then preparing to get the fuck out of this shell. All right, let's continue. Yes, the afterlife is still here, but I would say, just like this earth has crazy fucking realms in it, just of the earth, right? If the earth has, let me ask you something. If the earth has chakras, literally, energy vortexes, if the earth is alive, right? I think we can all agree to some degree that the earth is alive. There's definitely consciousness within earth, within nature. So if the earth has a body, which it does, it's the earth, would it not have an astral body? And out of that astral, there's not just one astral realm. Okay. So let's just keep that in mind. So the realm we call afterlife, this is my chat. The realm we call afterlife overlaps this one. The dead walk among the living, but the living have forgotten how to see. Ancestors aren't in the sky. They're standing behind the veil, the curtain, whispering through synchronicity, dreams, and deja vu. And of course, we can't forget, they're in you, literally alive in you. Bits of all these different consciousness in your motherfucking DNA. That's what your DNA is. It's a fucking hard drive. So besides all that, they're still here. There's, of their lots of things. If you could inherit your grandpa's nose, then you could possibly inherit somebody else's fucked up mental shit. You know what I'm saying? Or good mental shit, whatever. All right. Certain places, times, and states of consciousness thin the veil, which we all pretty much, I'm assuming that we know that. Rituals, psychedelics, trauma, deep meditation, these open the doors to the already present afterlife. Sometimes I would wonder, let's say there's a house made in the 1800s, right? And every night at a certain hour, there's like reports of a lady dressed a certain way in the kitchen or something like that. Sometimes I wonder, is it like some type of a film imprint, or are you actually hitting a loop of time? And what if in the 1800s, they're like, man, I seen this crazy motherfucker in the kitchen, you know what I'm saying? And it's you. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, your consciousness filters what realm you are in. Where you go after death depends on who you were while you were alive, just like everything else does. While you're alive, everything else, like who are you being at any given moment? That's like the most important thing. Not in the punishment reward sense, but in the frequency that you have anchored yourself to. Did you die full of fear? You might loop in the echo chamber of your own projections. Because we are all also creating thought forms too, which live on the astral realm, but yet they can interact, interface, with this, what we call physical. Did you live with power, presence, love, or sovereignty? You pass into the clear light, what Tibetan mystics call the bardo of liberation. The afterlife is your soul's last mirror. I know a lot of people are going to probably bring up reincarnation. I don't see how they both cannot exist. You know, there's obvious, to me, there's obvious proof that reincarnation exists. There's too many examples of it, right? At the same time, if you spend your life thinking that once you leave this meat suit, it's going to be like this, or that, you know what I'm saying? And you've spent a lifetime basically building that up. It's no surprise to me that that's what you would experience. You know, almost like how could you not necessarily experience something of that? Okay, where was the fuck was I at? Your conscious. Okay, so where you go after death, right? So this was kind of my point though, in what I was just saying. I truly don't think that there is just one afterlife. If you look at all the different cultures, right, they all have their death mythologies of what happens when you die. And you can bring that right up to current day as far as religions, right? But as much okay, so for example, in general there may be a certain kind of experience that many people say that they experience the light in the tunnel, they see relatives and they're all like, hey, come here, shit like that. All right, but then there's plenty of other people who've had death, who have died technically or whatever, and they have totally different experiences. So that just goes to show, to me, in my opinion, there is no one particular kind of afterlife. Like Earth has slums and palaces, the afterlife has light and dark territories, looping limbos, and ascended realms. Some are self created, thought form purgatories. Others are collective, like ancestral halls, heaven like dreamscapes, or demonic sanctuaries. Your vibration, or your frequency at the time, right? That is like your passport. You go where you match. And I really feel strongly with this one because just think about your everyday life here in the physical. If it's like that with all this, the limitations of the physical, it's gotta be like something that has to be pertinent anyways when you're out of this shit, when you're not in this sim, you know? Some spirits never leave. Some refuse to move on out of fear, unfinished business, or obsession. These become ghosts, shadow attachments, or ancestral guardians. Others choose to stay as guides, watchers, or protectors. What a job, bro. I'm out of here. Hey, you will figure it out. I have faith in you. um, Others choose to stay as guides, watchers, or protectors, especially sorcerers, mystics, and spirit. I beg your pardon. Uh, and spiritual workers who built astral infrastructures. See, that's a part of the work when you are into different practices of the occult and stuff like that. One that is kind of basic, but just maybe many names for it, but it's definitely in number one, building your astral self, your magical self, your sorceric self, your divine self. Then there's the what many magicians and sorcerers call the astral temple, right? So you literally build your own temple. It could turn into a city. It could turn into like a fucking planet. You can have your own planet. You can have your own galaxy, like whatever. But those are the types of things that carry over. And I've always said, like, if you're doing sorcery correctly, you're building up your astral body. You're not just making some effect, causing some effect here in the 3D. You are building your astral body. If you're doing it right, if you're not depleting yourself. Reincarnation is real, but it is not mandatory. Some souls come back, either to learn, to complete contracts, or out of amnesia. I think the amnesia one's a big one. I think that's a big one. Because if you think about it, you got a lot of people nowadays who do the same shit every day. Basically, they're not even up here. Most of the day they are gone somewhere else. They're just their body's going through it like a Sims character. You know what I'm saying? It's still there doing whatever it's doing. And that's just every day. There is no, well, you could say some of these people may still be asleep. You could say, oh, they're NPCs. You could say, whatever. I'm not sure. It could be all the above, you know? But those are the kind, and like a lot of the masses, or what we call the sheeple, don't think just because you die, you're going to turn into fucking Superman and shit. Unless you have like prepared for that. You know? People act like just because somebody died that they're like so much wiser on the other side. Yeah, maybe possibly if they fucking grown on the other side, did the growth that they wasn't doing here, you know, if you want to call it that, but that amnesia shit will have you right back in a little bitty baby. You know what I'm saying? with your memory wiped. Advanced souls don't reincarnate unless they choose to. They may hover in non-linear time, acting as guides, daemons, or even walk-ins. We've heard a lot about walk-ins. I shared my walk-in story a couple videos ago. But walk-ins can also, that's not just a negative thing. It could also be a positive thing, you know. Your soul is not on a treadmill. It's on a labyrinth. Rebirth is one option, not the rule. I mean, I can see how it can be a labyrinth. I might disagree, though, you know, and half of me does disagree. But once again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the death expert, you know. This sexy thing is still animated. It's still walking around. Okay. It's still a threat. Okay. What you believe, this is basically bottom line shit. What you believe, you build. One more time. What you believe, you build. And I just need to say one last thing here before I go into the what you believe, you build part. But when I was talking about amnesia, my theory is these are a lot of the people who externalize their own divinity and, you know, want to, it's always, their power is always outside of themselves. They don't see it in themselves. As a matter of fact, they probably find it sinful to even say that about themselves, you know. Those kinds of people, that's what that type of stuff is also very good at doing. Continuing that motherfucking amnesia, you know. And even down to like, if you really expecting a white boy in chancletas or whoever or whatever, I'm not singling anybody out, but if you really expect that someone's going to come out the clouds, snap their fingers, take away all your problems, and also grow, evolve, and do all that shit for you, like, to me, that just sounds dumb. It just sounds dumb. It just does. On my ear right here. It sounds dumb. Okay. What you believe, you build. But you can't have, if you leave the body, you just might see old Jesus or whoever. You know what I'm saying? Those are egregores. Those are huge egregores. You got billions of people fucking worshiping those egregores, feeding those egregores every fucking day. What you believe, you build. The afterlife reflects inner architecture. What were we just talking about? Right? The astral temple. I could see my astral temple right now. I could be in line at fucking Target. And anytime, just think of that. You can dip into your astral realm and do some shit. You don't need to have your it's cool if you got your physical shit going on, but you don't need to have that shit, you know? So the afterlife reflects inner architecture. If you deeply believe in hell, you may just as well fucking create it. If you believe in nothing, you may float in the fog until called. Called by who? Called by you, because you're all that is. That's why spiritual training during life is key. You're not preparing for death. You're preparing to remain conscious when your avatar finally kicks the bucket or drops. Here's another one, though. I'm sure you guys have all heard this one, or a lot of you have heard this one. What the fuck was it called? Quantum something. But the theory is basically, let's say you are at a store right now. You're about to cross the street to go to your car, and another car whips by, almost hits you, right? You don't experience no loss of continuity. Nothing drastic happened. You just almost got killed, right? Well, the theory is that your consciousness switched over to another track, if you will. one in which it was like, whew, close call. But you just left another reality that you are splattered all over the fucking street. It's all taped off. You know what I'm saying? They're like trying to identify you and like so they can call whoever and let somebody know that you are now looking like strawberry jam out here. You know? So I can totally see, and I have had experiences that mirror that kind of thing. I'm sure many of us have, where something happened in this moment and your consciousness keeps on going, keeps on keeping on, you know, and it seems like I didn't miss a beat. That was close call though. But in another on another bandwidth, another close reality right there, like you're splattered, you're done. They're all like gonna be planning a funeral or whatever. Let me see here. Okay, so yeah, that's why we talk about the spiritual training, blah 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 blah, because that is important. You kind of got carte blanche, huh? Afterwards, did you ever consider that? What if it is like carte blanche? What you expect, you're putting it forward, if you will. And when your avatar turns off, you get to go into that. Do you have like this immaculate garden, or do you have like this ran down lot? You know what I'm saying? With a bunch of dog dookie and weeds and thistles. Okay. So here's a few ways that you can do just that. Maybe you're already into some of these things, right? But they tie in. They really do. They say you die when you go to sleep, right? So who's to say, even though yes, technically your avatar still it's still got a heartbeat and shit like that, but the state that your consciousness is in might as well be, right? So number one on the list, this is also why shit like dream work can be very useful and very important. The dream world is your training ground for the afterlife. If you can't stay conscious in your dreams, you will likely black out at death and drift into unconscious reincarnation or confusion. How do you train by this? How do you do this, right? The simplest way, anyway. Number one, keeping a dream journal every single day. This builds the bridge between waking and sleeping consciousness. Another thing to me that it does is it's your symbolic gesture. Hey, this shit's important, right? I'm actually taking initiative to, like, right when I get up, as much as I do not feel like writing at that time, to, like, even if it's one word, maybe I felt so peaceful, right, in this dream, and it really stuck out to me. I'm not going to put all the details, but I'll just put peaceful, or peaceful and powder blue skies, or whatever it is, even if it's one line, you know, but it's your behavior. It's you're demonstrating, I'm serious about this shit. I'm serious, you know. So keeping a dream journal. There's fuckloads of ways to practice lucid dream induction techniques and stuff like that. You could just research that. If you're prone to using, or if you like using sigils, you can start getting a little magical with the shit. You can use sigils for that. Herbs, mugwort. Mugwort's really good. Mugwort actually helps me sleep really good too. Blue lotus and things of that nature. Telling yourself each night, I will remain conscious as I sleep. I will remember I am aware in all realms. And of course, it's a practice. You practice the shit. You know what I'm saying? And the goal is kind of simple with that one, is if you can wake up in a dream, you can wake up in death. That's the point. That's the point. You don't want to be like asleep in death. Like trance work, meditation under duress. Why? Most people panic as the body dies. You need to be able to stay calm under psychic stress. How you train by this? Well, you could practice meditation in uncomfortable positions or environments to stimulate stress. I know a lot of people do that. Or they can turn the noise and all the confusion and chaos into something that puts them even further into gnosis or further into meditation or that alpha theta brainwave. Learning breath suspension or retention, kumbhaka. So if you didn't know, kumbhaka is about not breathing, right? To still the body while intensifying awareness. And then, of course, my favorite, doing hypnosis, self-hypnosis to condition the subconscious to remain alert during shutdown. All right. You can also, this is everyone, a lot of people have a lot of fear with this one, but it's probably one of the equal, besides the dream journal shit like that, because that's, you really want that retention and comprehension thing going on. That's what you really want to be able to do. But in addition to having that, you want to practice astral projection, because if you can leave your body at will, you are training to separate your consciousness from your avatar, and that's exactly what death is. There's mixed feelings, and I'm just going to add mine. I was doing, I think it was last year, I was doing the Hemi Sync stuff by Robert Monroe. I was doing that. I just stopped. And it's not because I experienced anything or, whatever. It was actually pretty cool. I actually liked it. But, I sometimes I'd be getting the feeling that more stuff is added into the audio files and different things. And just something was like, nah, I'm cool. And that's just all I needed. You know what I'm saying? So you could, but if you choose to experience that for yourself, check it out. You can look up HemiSync here on YouTube. They got tons of different HemiSync things here. So practicing Robert Monroe shit, which is what I just said, or Buhlman's methods for out of body travel, spelled BUHLMAN-S. Never heard of that. Doing body scanning exercises before bed to disassociate gently. So it's kind of like you're observing your body. And then you may become aware that you're in it, but you can also leave your body. Like in your mind's eye, you can turn around and just look at yourself. You know what I'm saying? You can look at yourself from across the room. How do you look from across the room? Using binaural beats, dark room rituals, or theta state entry. Programming your subconscious with things like, I travel beyond the body with clarity and control. Tip, when successful, ask your motherfucking higher self or your spirit guide or whoever to show you your soul's destination after death. Conscious ritual death simulation. This one I have done a few times. This one can get pretty intense. That's why I have the death mask over there. You know what I'm saying? This one can get, we were actually going to release a death meditation plus an actual death oil that you can anoint your points before you do this type of ritual, but it is definitely life-changing. You're not going to look at, once fear loses its little sting, it's little, you know what I'm saying? Like, you really do start living way more. You know what I'm saying? You weren't living before is what you'll discover. So performing death and rebirth rituals, example, coffin meditations, burying an effigy of yourself and kind of like having a funeral for yourself. That can be a very, very, very powerful one. Banishing your old self with funeral rites, which is what I just said. Working with the death currents, the more primordial death currents. So You got like Hecate, Anubis, La Santa Muerte. Or if you created some type of your own, psychopomp guide or whatever that's going to help you out, experience that now while you're in your suit. Another mantra that you can incorporate for whatever, as far as this goes, is I die before I die. So when I die, there's nothing left to die. And that, my friends, is pretty much the gist. My take, anyways, and just some other ideas here as far as is the afterlife here on Earth. I really do. I mean, and I've heard for so many years the astral worlds and these physical worlds are really inseparable. There's no one without the other. You know what I'm saying? So just makes you think, makes you wonder. Let me see here. We do have a little comment here. Hey, body mommy, what are you still doing up, yo? It's good to see you. Yeah, but that is the scoop, and that's what. There's no one. I know for a fact. There's not no one answer. There's not no one answer. Everyone likes the simple one answer, but that's just, it can be that way for you if you want to just accept whatever one answer is given to you. But I think there's so much that goes into this, just like with your life. Your life is what you make it, and this physical realm is what you make it. Why would death be any different? Why? But anyways, that is what I have for you. And to the person who did sponsor this video, they insisted that I remain. Like, I want to shout them out because it's like, hey, we want to say thanks, and this video is because of you. But they insisted that I do not say the name. So your nickname, sponsoring person, is Rough. That's your nickname. All right. So shout out to you. And yeah, we about to be out of here though. We'll be back on tomorrow doing some reads and stuff like that. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope it gave you something to think about, other perspectives to consider while you're still in your suit. You know what I mean? So have a good night. And yeah, thank you, person Rough. All right.